now. Hello, Daksha, beautiful woman. How are you?
I'm absolutely fabulous, Anna. How are you?
Oh, I'm so delighted to have you in the program. And for everybody watching here, Daksha is such a beautiful person inside and out. We've known her for years. We've been working together. We bring our leaders and other people as well, leaders in our project and people that are not working in our project of wealth creation. We bring them with Daksha because what she teaches, and she's going to go into more detail about that during the interview, what she teaches is so powerful that we can change our lives. And it's so easy at the same time. It's so easy to apply. It's small things that can turn around our lives massively. So she adds so much value. Also because I've known her for years, so I can see how she's grown. She can read people. She's so gentle. She's so knowledgeable. I mean, would you marry me?
You have to ask me, Anna. I'm not sure how Owen would feel about it.
Daksha, tell us your empowering story, because I know that it wasn't always so easy for you.
No, I guess it's interesting, isn't it, how you discover your calling, and often people will say that you teach what you need to learn.
Yeah.
And I suppose being an Asian woman growing up in a culture where there's a lot of tradition, there's a lot of community, there's a lot of religion. So I guess my journey into personal development started at a very young age. I was, I have three brothers. I'm the only daughter, and growing up in that kind of family structure was tough, because the balance was always more heavily weighted towards the males as opposed to the female, so I found that a lot of the times I had to fight to express myself and get my voice heard, and that wasn't always easy. Because when you're growing up, you are told that you need to be subservient, you need to be quiet, nobody's interested in your opinion, and you were discouraged really to sort of express yourself. And I guess I think deep down I knew that wasn't me. And I guess when I started in the world of personal development, a lot of the reason that I did it was because I wanted to know how to be more assertive. I wanted to know how can I express myself? How can I get my voice heard? And I think I started at a very young age around trying to figure those things out. And it did take me down a path of wanting to read more about personal growth and development, really just to overcome some of those challenges, and finding that balance between, not even a balance really, but I guess it was more around how can I be more of who I want to be as opposed to what everybody else wants me to be.
What I see very interesting here, Daksha, is that you're coming from the belief of being a woman is not good enough. And that's it. That doesn't make sense. And then rather than you buying into the story and belief that was not yours, that was imposed, you ask yourself better questions.
Yes.
How wise is this woman?
But that was probably, I was having to asking myself these questions when I was in my teens, because as I entered into my teens, I was having to think about, O levels and A levels, and O levels and A levels are they're part of the path, aren't they, in terms of the education system, and you're taking and you're studying these courses because they're going to get you to where what your career path is. And interestingly enough, My desire was always to
Oops,
be
I
a.
lost you there for a second.
You lose me there?
Sorry, Daksha. I need to interrupt you there because I lost you for a second. The phone, there was a call coming in, and I lost you in your teens. Can you please repeat
Okay.
there? What happened in your teens? Sorry
So
about that.
when you're in your teens, you're thinking about your O levels and your A levels and the subjects that you want to study, so that you can get onto your career path. And interestingly, when I was growing up, I wanted to be a fashion designer. And I really enjoyed art, and I loved sewing. And I'm very grateful to my mum, because she taught me how to sew. And I really enjoyed it. And the interesting thing was, my parents couldn't wrap their heads around what is a fashion designer. They understood what a doctor was, and they knew what an accountant was, and they knew what somebody looks like when they work in a bank. And so they were very much saying to me,
Yeah,
unless you do these types of careers, then actually you're not really successful. So that was my first battle.
yeah. They only knew a few boxes.
I only knew a few boxes.
A few
Absolutely.
boxes.
And because I wanted to do something outside the box, it was, oh my God, can't do that, because that means that you're not going to be successful, you know.
Mm.
So I guess that those questions and that inner tension, that inner battle, really started at quite a young age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. It reminds me a little bit of the story that Anita Mojani tells,
Mm.
how because she was in a culture that was not the same culture as it was in her home, because there were Indians living in Hong Kong, and she was going to a British school. So
Mm-hmm.
you have everything minus minus the Hong Kong thing, but still is the same thing. Is living between two different worlds and trying to match them up and find yourself there. So
Yeah.
that's quite a big challenge.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
there's things in both worlds that you want to embrace, and somehow you're told you have to choose. It's one or the other. And actually, it's not really a choice, because you're told that the only choice
Why not?
you have is you take the one that your parents give you. So it's not really a choice. Um,
Yeah.
that's a really, that I guess that's really where my journey started, and it kind of went from there, really, because even, I lived a very sheltered life. My father was very, very strict, so there was no going out and meeting up with friends after school, or going to discos, or going to nightclubs. There was none of that.
Of
um
course not.
no, because they wanted to make sure that they knew exactly what I was doing all the time, and that I wasn't going to stray off the path, kind of thing. So then when I went to university, that really opened up my eyes. I was exposed to lots of things, things that I hadn't really come into contact with, like boys and alcohol and dancing and clubbing. It was like, wow, what, I've been missing out for so long. So, so that
The
was
world out there.
Yeah, so that was really really eye-opening, I guess, because my world up until then had been very, very narrow, and then now I was exposed to a bigger world. I could see more opportunities. I could see more possibilities.
You could choose. You can design your life.
Well, even at that point, I would say that what I realized was, yes, there's a lot of choice. However, it felt like those choices weren't available to me.
Okay.
If I chose those, if I made the choice to go down that path, then there was a cost.
Yeah.
So the cost is that
What
you
would be the cost?
the cost is that you go against what your parents are saying. You go against your parents' wishes, because my parents are saying, we want you to do A, B, C, and D, and that's it. And when you get to D, that's you. You're successful. End of.
And what would be success for them?
So for them, their definition of success is you go to university, you get your degree, you find a good job, either as a doctor, a banker, or an accountant, and then you get married, and then you have children, and then you live happily ever after. And
Oh,
that,
okay. So just do the whatever is written out there, the regular path.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, it was like, yeah, I can see that in your eyes this would mean success, but it didn't fit my world at all.
Mm-hmm.
My mind had been exposed and open to all these different possibilities, and that's really kind of where I wanted to go. That was, for me, that was my way of exploring life, and it just seemed so much more exciting than the picture that they had painted. The box that they had created just yeah, it was so
Little box.
tiny. Yeah, it was so tiny. It felt like, wow, this is so boring. This. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with those things, but it wasn't for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was a square box, and you were round.
Yeah, that's it. Definitely a round pin in a square hole.
How did you use all that to turn into the powerful woman that you are now?
Well, I'm still work in progress, and every day I do the work so that I'm evolving all the time. And once I finished university, I decided I was going to work in personnel management. I really enjoyed HR and people. And what happened was I really struggled. I couldn't get a job because I didn't have the experience, but I couldn't get the experience because I didn't have a job. And it was this vicious cycle. And I ended up coming back from university and staying with my parents for a whole year. And that was just excruciating. It was just so hard because it was like, I had discovered this huge world. I had experienced lots of things. And now I'd become so big, and now I was having to squash back into this life that I no longer wanted. I'd grown out of. So that was a really tough year. And eventually I applied for the graduate training scheme with the National Health Service, and I was successful, and it was general management. And so when I was on the scheme, I was so fortunate. I was incredibly lucky because the scheme is amazing, and I had a mentor who was a CEO for 2 years, and as a trainee I had access to lots and lots of leadership and management courses. And interestingly, when I was sitting in these classes, I would sit there and I would think, I don't want to be a trainee, I don't want to be a delegate. I want to be that person. I want to be that trainer who's standing up and inspiring and motivating everybody. And at that point in my life, I had no idea how I was going to do that, because I was a very shy person. I wouldn't speak up. If I had to stand up and present, I got incredibly nervous. I'd have sleepless nights because I'd be
Oh my God.
about it. So I didn't know how I was going to get from sort of where I was to where I wanted to be, because the gap just felt so big. And I suppose, after a while, the more often you do something, the easier it becomes. And I eventually progressed up the career ladder in the National Health Service. And it's interesting because as I was progressing up the career ladder, all my sort of childhood patterns, I guess, some of these things that had been embedded into my head from a childhood kept repeating themselves. And my father was very, very strict. I was always told that when there's other men in the room, you don't speak up. You're very subservient, and you don't express yourself. And often when my father spoke to the kids or the children, the siblings, he only spoke to you if because you thought, wow, he definitely speaking to me now because I'm in trouble. And so that was the only time that you were allowed to speak. It was really interesting. And so as I was going through my career, here's me who's a trainee who's aspiring to work in senior management positions. And then when I'm in a room full of other men, I go really quiet. and I don't say anything. And I was like, wow, what is going on here? And you know, I didn't know any of this stuff then, you know, at that time. I didn't know that these were my subconscious patterns that were repeating themselves. And that was then leading me to think a certain way, which then made me behave a certain way, which made me feel a certain way. I didn't know any of those things. And through this work, I guess what's happened is it's enabled me to really think about my own habits, why I do the things that I do. But more importantly, now I have the information to know how I can change those things. So it's an interesting career progression. And then I got enticed into the whole world of management consultancy, which I absolutely loved. But it was a very challenging culture, a very different culture from working in the public sector to working in the private sector. And I struggled. I really struggled to make that transition. And then I then ended up working for a local authority back in the public sector, working in senior management. And eventually I decided that I wanted my own business. I'd already trained as a coach. I had already had experience of delivering training in personal development. I had studied, I'd personally grown, and so I decided I wanted to start my own business. And when I started my own business, it was very exciting at first, and then eventually I just became very overwhelmed. I struggled to set up my business. I had no idea how to run my own business. I didn't know about social media, I didn't know about marketing, I didn't know about networking. All I knew was I had this passion to do what I wanted to do, and I had no idea how to get my services or my products out into the world. And I struggled for a good 2 years, and this was in 2013. And I nearly gave in. I thought, right, this isn't for me. I'm not cut out to be a businesswoman. What I'll do is I will apply for a job back in the public sector. And I was listening to the radio, and I was listening to Dr. Joe Dispenza.
There you go.
And as I was listening to Dr. Joe, I was having all these light bulb moments. I was having lots of aha moments. I realized at that point why my life was exactly why it was the way it was. And I thought to myself, wow, this information that he's sharing is an absolute game changer. And so it was like finding the missing piece of the jigsaw puzzle for me. And so I went to the Netherlands in 2014 to a workshop, a progressive workshop that Dr. Joe was delivering. And at that weekend, I knew with every fiber of my cells that I wanted to be one of his trainers. So Dr. Joe had created a corporate program based on his teachings. And so I decided I wanted to become one of his trainers. So in 2015, I was certified, became accredited as one of his trainers. And so now I'm part of a global team called Neuro Change Solution Consultants. And 2016, I trained with the HeartMath Institute. So Dr. Joe does a lot of work with the HeartMath Institute. And for me, bringing those two skill sets together was a complete no-brainer. So I trained with the HeartMath Institute. So once I did that, things really started to crystallize for me. And I knew that what I wanted to teach was really around how to optimize personal effectiveness and team performance, as it says on the banner. And that really is around how we do that by, transforming stress, how we build emotional resilience. And a lot of it is around how do we actually align our mindset with our business goals and values. And so it's been an interesting journey. I'm sure I've left out lots and lots of things. However, I would say that it's been incredibly challenging, and it still is challenging to a certain degree. A lot of those, that early programming from my childhood still kind of pops up every now and again, so I have to stay on it. I have to become aware when maybe some of that childhood programming is getting in the way of me moving forward.
Wow, so many things. I've written them all down. Actually, look at the notebook.
You should have stopped me.
No, let me just summarize them, because there's so much information, so much valuable information, just to make sure that I've captured at least the skeleton and the things that some people can't relate to, because our experience, in my opinion, our experiences, if we share them with others and we share the learnings, not the victimism, oh, poor me because I'm Asian and I'm Spanish, whatever, I'm a woman, oh, poor me, I cannot change that. Well, it's not about that. It's, you've been given a set of circumstances for some reason. I think that we chose those circumstances. That's my thought anyway, or my belief. And yeah, I think so. We're given those ones to play with them in a way, and we have the option to transform them. And then if we go, when we go through those challenges, the person that we become on the other side is superwoman or superman or super in the middle or super whatever. And it feels so awesome, isn't it? So it's about that, because this is a circus. I mean, between you and I, nobody else is listening. This is a circus. You are talking about, you were talking about doing the work. You're very clever. You were sitting there doing the work, Afterwards, you're going to tell us more about that work. You stress, I think, the power of education, or it just came up through your conversation that, I mean, we need to learn new things if we want to become something different, if we want to become a better version of ourselves. You also talk about a clear intention. You said, quote unquote, I knew with every fiber of myself. You knew at some point, but before you get to that point in 2014 you go to that aha moment of, this is what I want to do. Before that, you were already following your heart, and you had no freaking idea how to get there. You didn't know how to join the dots, but you trusted your gut. And the universe helped.
Yes.
Because at the moment when you said, I'm giving up because I need to pay the bills, then the universe puts Joe Dispenza in front of you. Oh, what a coincidence. What a coincidence. And something really, really interesting that you talk about is the patterns, the program coming up from our childhood. It's not because you are so special, which you are. We are all programmed until the age of 7 approximately. I'm no expert, you are. But until the age of seven, what did I say? Did I say 7? Until we're 7, and I'm going to have a bit of a diverted moment here. I'm not aware of religions, but I know that bar mitzvah is around that age, and Catholics, they have the first communion. And the reason behind, I was raised as a Catholic, is because now we become like rational beings. I don't know how to translate it, but it's until 7 is like you are nobody, you're just a child, and you cannot be held accountable for your actions. But at the age of 7, that's when they give you the host, Holy Communion. It happens there. So Indians know that, at least those two.
Yeah.
I will look into the other ones to see if there are other rites into manhood or womanhood, or what initiation rites when they happen. But that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
And those programs show up all the time, and you say, I am aware of them. So one at a time, you look at them and then, right?
Absolutely.
I'm doing this because, and that's your parents' program, your culture program, your whatever program, but it's not you. You are an infinite being, round pin that could adapt to anything, and you have that clear vision of who could be the best action in the world, you had it in here all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So God bless you, whatever God it is, for following it and being such a good example for, because we have it inside. We have it all.
Absolutely. And sometimes, even though we intuitively know that this is what I want, the fears come in, don't they? And so you keep it pushed down because you tell yourself, oh, I can't do this because my parents won't approve. I can't do this because, you know, they'll get angry, or I'm going to disappoint them, or, you know, they won't support me. And all that chatter, you know, just keeps you, you know, it means that you just keep suppressing and suppressing and suppressing all the things that you really innately want to do. And what I find is that it's like a pressure cooker effect. You can keep it pushed down so long, and then something happens and you just can't hold it in. Exactly. Exactly. You know, and it somehow you I don't even know how to best describe it, but your soul just says enough is enough. You know, your soul will find a way of making it very clear to you that actually this is your path. And on the one hand, when you find that path, it's just so rewarding. You feel this sense of relief, and you know, you end up saying, why didn't I do this sooner? Why didn't I trust? Why didn't I believe?
Because the sky never fell on top of our head. And
Exactly.
you're saying that at some point it exploded and it's this way. I just have to go this way because this is who I am. However, would it be fair to say that some people, even that's going on, they still keep suppressing their call and then they become sick or they die?
Yes. Yeah. Because when you are suppressing when you suppress what you innately or what your heart is saying, there is an element of frustration. You're frustrated, or you're angry at your parents because, you know, they didn't let you do what you wanted to do, or, you know, you get irritated, or you're disappointed in yourself. And actually all those emotions are what I call depleting emotions, and they're depleting because they drain you energetically.
Yeah.
And eventually your tank will be empty eventually.
Yeah.
You know, and usually when you drain yourself energetically like that, I guess that's really when, to a certain degree, those depleting emotions like frustration and impatience and maybe anger, in effect, what they do is they trigger that stress response. And so you're always fighting, or you're fleeing, or you're hiding. And when you trigger that stress response, the body is always releasing adrenaline and cortisol. And if the body is continuously releasing cortisol, it's like you're living in emergency mode all the time. And no human being can sustain living in emergency mode all the time. And that's really where, you know, medium to long term, that's where the disease kicks in. So then you become ill. You know, your health deteriorates, or you burn out, or you break down. And sometimes it takes getting to that place for you to realize, actually, I'm on the wrong path. And the reason that I feel this way is because I'm not really being true to myself.
Yeah. And that's what you're teaching now. Would you like to go a bit more into detail?
Yeah.
About what you're teaching? You're teaching what you need to learn and what brought you to the beautiful state in which you are in. Even though it's a work in progress, that's okay.
So now, as a certified trainer for Dr. Joe Dispenza, as I said, I'm part of a global team, and we're called NeuroChange Solution Consultants. And we teach Dr. Joe's work into the corporate world, into the business world. And the program that we deliver is called Change Your Mind, Create New Results. And
I swear I didn't put this there
There
for
you
this
go.
interview.
There you go. There you go. That's the program. And Anna, you have done this program, I don't know, maybe your fourth time?
4 or 5 times,
Four or
yeah.
five times, absolutely.
Yeah, 4 for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So the program is delivered from. It does have science in it, and I guess the best way for me to sum it up is it teaches you the science of personal change, and you know how our habits keep us the same, and how those habits are formed, and how most people will either be living in a state of stress or survival, or in a state of creation where they're thriving. And what we know is that 70% of the time, most people are in a state of survival or in a state of stress. And the teachings really are about how do we um, shift from that state of stress so that we can spend more time living in creation. And a lot of that is to do with building that self-awareness of our habits. And habits are made up of how we think, how we act, and how we feel. And if we think, act, and feel in a certain way for a long period of time, we create these thinking and feeling loops, and then they become embedded habits into the subconscious mind. So it's important to understand how the brain actually works, and how the body actually works, and how the body and the brain communicate when we're thinking, acting, and feeling. How our external world, our external circumstances um, can influence to spend more time living in stress. And actually, like right now, we're going through COVID-19. We can't control our external environment, and so we have to think greater than our circumstances. We have to think greater than our circumstances. We have to think greater than how our body is feeling. Yes, there's a lot of people out there who are feeling panicked and stressed and frustrated. However, if you run your own business, you've got to be able to think greater than those feelings, so that you can stay in creation, so that you can start to think about how can I restructure or redesign my business so that when we come out of this period, I'm still ready to offer my services and products. And a lot of people have had to do that because not being able to do face to face. I know a lot of people are delivering their work or offering their services on digital. And then you have to think greater than time. Right now, we've no idea how long we are going to be in self-isolation, although I like to call it self-incubation.
I love it.
And we don't know how long it's going to be. But if you start to think about time, then again, that's going to shift you into living in stress. So you have to think greater than time. You have to use this time to say, okay, this is a real opportunity for me to use this time productively. I'm not going to do what I've always done. I'm going to use my time differently. Maybe it's time to work on the business. Maybe it's time to create more content. Maybe it's time to rediscover all the things that you love doing but complain that you never had enough time for. Yeah.
Which is, again, being the thinker who thinks, control our thoughts and ask better questions.
Absolutely.
Because our brain would go into, oh my God, where am I going to find toilet paper? My business is going to down the loo. And those are the facts, and our brain can go there in that spiral down. But if we say, shut up, I'm in command here, let's use you to ask better questions. And that's, as a user of this program, I did it 4 or 5 times. Every time I learned something. For that, I'm very grateful. Every time I saw you as an even better teacher, but maybe because I was ready to taking a bit more. Maybe you were the great teacher all the time. I'm sure of it, actually. No, maybe, I'm sure. It's just that it's every time we get something new, because there will be more things from the program, more patterns showing up that we were not even aware. And there are so many.
Isn't it? You work on one layer and you think, well, I've sorted that. Well, it doesn't work like that. There's always something else that pops up.
Yes.
And then you've got to deal with that. It just means that you become you become more conscious, and so you find it easier to spot those signs, and you
Yeah.
don't go into automatic behavior. You're able to sort of
Mm.
step outside and observe yourself in a much more conscious way. So the program really does talk about the science of how the mind, body, and brain works. And there are tools in there, and then we talk about meditation. We talk about mental rehearsal, and really we know what happens when you meditate. The brain and the heart become more coherent, and this is really where some of the heart math work comes into it, where we talk about heart coherence and how do we how do we shift into that heart coherence, because when the heart is coherent, the brain is coherent. And really it's
Yeah.
about shifting into those elevated emotions. And when we're in those elevated emotions, we are spending more time in creation. And when we're in creation
Yeah.
and the heart and the brain are coherent, that's really when we're going to come up with our best ideas. That's when we're going to come up with those new ways of working and ask ourselves those better questions. Um, and actually, that's when we start to create our futures. You know, we can start to, the best way to predict your future is to create your future.
Yeah. For
Yeah.
those people who are not familiar with the work,
Mm-hmm.
and Daksha is talking, there's science there. Don't worry, the science is very easy to follow. It's just that gives our brain the peace of saying, yeah, there's something here backing this stuff up. So I'm happy with this. And for the brain and heart coherence, it means that rather than being, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do. It's like you're calm and you can take decisions from that calmness.
Yeah.
But we experience that all the time. If we're in the middle of a fight, we say things we shouldn't be saying, that we wouldn't be saying, and it just backfire all the time. If we go back to any conversation or any situation when we're calm, we're able to find solutions. So that's what Daksha is saying.
Yeah.
Way more beautiful. Way more beautiful.
And again, in terms of this work, I said right at the beginning, I'm evolving, and as I grow, and as I look to grow my business, I'm also faced with new challenges. Even simple things like doing a Facebook video live, that's challenging, and I need to think about, okay, what am I thinking? How am I feeling? And I really need to think, about what is going on for me at a subconscious level to say, okay, now I need to create a new thought around this so that I can feel differently about it.
Exactly.
And so I'm using the work, I'm practicing the work all the time, all the
You
time.
are the work.
Yeah.
Oh my God. You do walk the talk.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That's what makes you such an outstanding teacher and such an outstanding role model to follow.
Thank you.
Role model to follow. Yeah. Daksha, where can people find you?
So my business is called Your Mind at Work.
Your Mind at Work.
Yep, I'm on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm. As Your Mind at Work?
Yeah, no, as Daksha Patel.
Daksha Patel. Daksha, it'll be written down below the video.
Okay, so it's Daksha Patel, that's on LinkedIn. My website address is www.your-mind-at-work.com.
Your-mind-at 80?
Yes.
Hyphen again.
Work.com.
Work.com.
Yeah. And then I'm also on LinkedIn. So if people want to connect with me on LinkedIn, you can find me. Just put Daksha Patel, Your Mind at Work, it'll come up. I'm also on Facebook.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you so much. This has been, as usual, such a pleasure.
Thank you, Anna, for giving me the opportunity to talk about myself. I hope that what I've shared will provide some nugget of inspiration, and just really to say that this is a journey. We're always growing, we're always evolving. We're never going to be I don't want to be the finished product, because if I become the finished product, it means that I've peaked. I'm not ready to peak and move on, if you know what I mean. So I'm incredibly grateful to this work, and I'm incredibly grateful to you, Anna and Owen, because you know every year you invite me to come to Ireland and deliver this training, which I absolutely love doing. So I'm incredibly grateful to you and Owen. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart.
My pleasure. And even though this work has been designed originally for the corporate world, the way Daksha does it, because she's so good at reading every single person, the way she does it is she tailors the thing to whatever the audience is perfectly seamlessly. It's just amazing. And the groups that Owen and I organize are small enough for looking after you, and you can feel wrapped around Daksha's love so much. Plus, she also brings the thingy to see your heart and brain coherence, heart and brain coherence, which is then you see on the screen, oh my God, now I can take decisions. Now I'm in the creative mode. Now the world is mine. So thank you. You can also contact me for the next event I will be organizing with Daksha, because for small groups or individuals, that's a way that it could work. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. So I'm sending you a big fat virtual hug. Somebody said to me, Daksha, what's the first thing you're going to do after, you know, we come out of COVID-19? I was like, I'm just going to go and hug as many people as possible. I'm so missing my hugs.
I understand. There are 5 of us at home, and I hug them all the time, and 2 of them are not very huggy, so I just appreciate it and value them more even. Daksha, my love, thank you. I love you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. You still there? Oops.